Our money situation is how we are. It's not who we are. Who we are is innate, and whether we're going through turbulent times financially or not, that's separate from our worth. Our money is how we are. And when we truly care about ourselves, we also take financial self-care. We practice financial wellness and we take ourselves seriously, because when we have financial peace and stability, it really fuels all other areas of our life.
Joyce, thank you so much for coming and joining me this morning. I'm really excited to continue to collaborate with you and have you share a little bit with the audience about your journey, your story, and be able to share your learnings and insights to help bring more peace of mind around finances and the current uncertainty I think that we've got going on in the market and in people's lives today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always such a pleasure to talk with you. I find we have so much in alignment, and I hope it's meaningful for everyone today.
Thank you. So, Joyce, for those who haven't met you or don't know about you, can you share a little bit about your background and how you ended up where you are today?
So I'm a licensed psychotherapist, and I came into the field, wanting to help others more than 25 years ago. And like many therapists, we often come into the field because of our own challenges. We've been through something in our earlier life experiences that have gifted us with empathy and insight and a desire to be of service to others. And when I came into my studies, I started psychotherapy as part of my training, and it was transformational for me. I love this work so much and have dedicated my life to encouraging people to remove the shame and stigma around mental health and promoting access to care. So I founded, built, and successfully sold, after making many mistakes, a 7-figure mental health company, and have moved on to become a keynote speaker and corporate trainer, and also author. The Financial Mindset Fix was published in 2021, and I'm currently working on my next book, The Psychology of Success.
I love the diversity of your experiences and how you continue to challenge yourself to grow and help impact people in bigger and bigger ways. It certainly mirrors my perspective that we're here to continue to grow, and it's through that growth that you can build a fulfilling life.
I completely value constant growth and learning and development, and I'm mission driven, and my roles have changed as I've moved throughout my lifetime. And now I'm an empty nester. I'm in my early 50s, and I'm being called to serve in different ways. And that's exciting.
hmm You mentioned early on feeling like you had a passion for people or around this mental health side. Anybody that's been in my realm long enough knows that I have a belief system that, the things that give us purpose and meaning in our lives often stem from our childhood and the things we experience or see. I'm interested to know, when was that moment or that light bulb for you of this passion that has then bloomed into this amazing career?
Well, I think it was early on in graduate school, as I was listening to the lectures and reading the books and thinking, oh my goodness, this is myself, this is my family. And it's a very humbling human experience. And we're all shaped and molded by our earlier life experiences. And I've seen in my own journey, and now tens of thousands of clients, that we all unconsciously repeat themes and patterns that are familiar to us, roles and responsibilities, until we become aware and we choose something healthier for us. And so it's been such a reward to guide so many people through their self-discovery and their healing. They're coming into honoring their own life experiences with tremendous self-compassion, and then also celebrating and empowering themselves to shine their light and align their gifts with a need in the world to the greatest extent possible. And I believe as a therapist, I can only guide my clients to a level of consciousness or healing that I've achieved myself. And so I'm my tool, whether it's as an author or a speaker or a therapist. And so I'm always working on growing and developing and learning new tools with the intention of helping other people heal, recover, thrive, and prosper.
Mm, wonderful. Today, we're going to spend a chunk of our time talking about finances. It's a topic that I know, to be honest, rules most people's lives. The feeling that if they just had more money, they could do whatever they wanted. Or, I often hear people talk about just needing to continue to work until they can retire and enjoy their life. If you look at what's happening globally, we're in a season of, I think, the beginning of another huge revolution of how we live and work with AI and what's coming, with what's happening politically and globally. And what I sense is a feeling of a lot of uncertainty and a lot of anxiety around what does that mean for me, my family, my children financially. With that said, I want to turn it over to you. What are your thoughts and your perspectives about that? What would you say to people based on the environment that we sit in today? And knowing that financial scarcity often is something that we grow up with that we don't even realize is driving our life, but doesn't have to.
Oh my gosh, so many things to respond to with that. Yes, absolutely. We've been living through several years of chronic change and uncertainty with the pandemic, the rise of AI, everything that you've mentioned. And there are huge mental health and financial health implications. And the two are very much interconnected because when we have financial stress and anxiety, it can exacerbate anxiety, depression, low self esteem, feelings of powerlessness, even financially triggered post traumatic stress disorder, or frighteningly, thoughts of suicide. 20% of suicides are financially driven. And my message is our money situation is how we are, it's not who we are. And who we are is innate, and we are all deserving of goodness and prosperity. And whether we're going through turbulent times financially or not, that's separate from our worth. Our money is how we are. And so when we care about ourselves deeply, we know our value regardless of our bank account or our job status, et cetera. And when we truly care about ourselves, we also take financial self-care. We practice financial wellness and we take ourselves seriously because when we have financial peace and stability, it really fuels all other areas of our life. Everything from our nutrition to our healthcare to our education, our abilities to take care of ourselves and enjoy life. Your point about many of us being on the hamster wheel of constant busyness and putting off our enjoyment until retirement is absurd because not all of us have that luxury or that blessing of growing old. And so we need to have more work-life integration where we're enjoying our life and we have meaning and connection and laughter and art and music and exercise and travel and all that fuels our fire while we're serving and working. And it is challenging, and especially during times where we're frustrated, we're burnt out, people are exhausted and depleted. I call this phase of time the great exhaustion. And I agree with you, Blake, that I believe that all of this is coming to a head for positive change, and that the days of the 9 to 5s, the corporate America, a lot of those structures are going to fall away, I think. And there's going to be room and space for something more fluid and something that supports our holistic success and health and wellness. And so at this time, I think it's really an opportunity for each of us to go inward and to reflect and do our emotional, psychological, and financial healing so that we can be mentally and financially resilient for the challenges that come within the next several years and frankly for the rest of our life. And I agree that our challenges are opportunities. Sometimes people say to me, gosh, it must be so hard to be a therapist because you're listening to people suffering. And of course, that part is sad and difficult, but it's also such an honor and a blessing to have people share with me so intimately. And it's so powerful to see that our suffering carves wisdom into our spirits. And people who've been through a lot are tremendously powerful. And that is so valuable to me that it's worth the heartache or the hardship of being there during difficult times. And I believe in the hope and recovery and resiliency of the human spirit. And I see my role as a healer, as a guide, as a messenger to encourage people to love themselves and one another even more, even better, and reap the blessings that are available to each and every one of us.
Thank you for that. There's so many things I want to follow up with, but I think I'll first start with until we speak the challenges that we experience, that we feel that our brain is ruminating in our heads, we'll never be free. And I think the biggest thing I see keeping people stuck is that they believe those stories that their brain is telling them that are rooted in shame or lack or guilt. And it's only, I think, until the door can be opened and conversations can be had about the human experience that you're not alone, you're not broken, nothing is wrong with you. That you can begin to understand, like you said, the things that you think, the life that you have today is a result of the patterns that you've been repeating since childhood. And none of us get a free pass from that. None of us get a free pass from doubt or the challenges that we didn't know how to process as a child. We all experience that. And when I see people struggle with finances in particular, I think often there's a lot of shame, particularly if you're, a 6+ figure income earner. Why am I still on this cycle? I should be further along. My life should look differently. Or if you get laid off or you're unfulfilled in your work, a fear around having to stay because of the money. And I know for me, that is definitely part of what kept me stuck in the cycle so long of staying in a career that was physically and emotionally and mentally draining me, that I needed to leave, was the responsibility of that income that I was bringing in and the responsibility of what that looked like for my family. And I know there are so many other people that are going through those same things, but if we don't speak it aloud, you often believe that you're the only one.
Yes, we compare our insides to other people's outsides. And we imagine that everyone else is doing swimmingly and that we're, struggling on our own. And that's one of the blessings of being a therapist for over 25 years is I know each and every one of us has our unique challenges and traumas and life experiences, and none of us is exempt from that as part of the human condition. We're each sort of dealt a different hand of hardships and blessings, and we each have our own genetic makeup in terms of how our brains are hardwired to respond to stress from a mental health perspective. Some of us respond with depression or anxiety, some with addiction. And that's determined by our levels of stress and our levels of support. And even our financial wellness lives in our epigenetics, lives in our DNA. So if our parents or our grandparents or our ancestors went through financial traumas, our nervous system, our psyches are pre-wired to respond in a certain way. And no shame, no stigma. It's not our fault. It's a normal response to our DNA and our life experiences. And when we become conscious, like for example, when I started a business with $500, I had 50,000 of student loans. I made 1,000 mistakes and ended up in cash flow hell. And on the outside, I was on TV. I owned a group practice. I had many therapists working for me and a cute little house in Evanston, Illinois. No one would have known, but I was laying awake at night, not able to pay my rent or my staff on time. And so, yeah, I think we think, oh, if I'm highly educated, I've accomplished, things in my career, we can still be dealing with student loans, the cost of living, raising a family, starting a business. And sometimes we make financial mistakes. And mine was that I did not seek proper business or financial consultation, and I ended up in cash flow hell. The bigger the company got, the more money was outstanding in insurance. And I didn't have the funds to bridge the gap. And that experience broke me open. It taught me humility and the importance of asking for help. And instead of pretending like everything was fine and smiling on the outside and crying awake at night, I started crying outwardly to people and telling them, like, I am in a really big pickle and I could use any help you can offer. And help came out of the woodwork. So when we're authentic and vulnerable and we share our suffering, when we're around caring, good people, they will lift us up and they will heal us. And that experience is what I want to share with others, that we can all go through really dark times and we can rebirth a new life. We can go through transformation. You know, around the same time, I went through a divorce and then went through the process of falling in love and getting married again. And life has these cycles of death and rebirth. And we each need the tools to sort of surf those challenges so that we come out on the other end stronger.
To celebrate the launch of Impact with Ease, we're giving away over $6,000 in prizes to help you thrive at work and at home. Everyone who enters gets Realignment Rituals, my 5-day audio series to reclaim your energy and clarity, plus a chance to win coaching, courses, and more from top experts. Enter by August 30th at impactwithease.com/giveaway. I love your comment about cycles of life. I know that to be true. And I think often these are things we aren't taught. Like, it's funny, when you become more conscious of these things, you begin to understand these things in science that we're taught also apply to us as human beings. But somehow, as a little kid, it's like compartmentalized, right? It happens in nature, but it doesn't happen to me. And so I think often as humans, our desire to keep things the same, our desire to not have change is what creates so much of our suffering, because we don't recognize that we do have cycles and we are meant to grow. And there are things that we need to let go of oftentimes in order to be able to become more of who we really are, to have more joy or fulfillment or abundance. And so you speaking that, I think, is very powerful, because when you experience the struggle of feeling like what you're doing isn't working anymore, it's very normal as a human being to want to hold on or cling to what you have or see that shift as negative. And I think it's the perception of that that often keeps us stuck, that creates the suffering, that often perpetuates and builds the problem into something so much bigger. Because to your point, what happened to you in your business had been happening for a long period of time. And it was a daily, weekly, monthly, maybe even yearly thing before it got to a place where the whole house broke down and you had to do something different. And as humans, I recognize that often we don't create change until we're no longer willing to tolerate it. But I think some of that shifts when you begin to understand the true experience of what it's like to be a human, the reality that we all have these challenges. And it's about, how do we learn our opportunities, our lessons, and how do we embrace the fact that growth does require that change, and learn how to let go of things and work in uncertainty in a more meaningful way. One of my mentors talks about anxiety equals uncertainty times powerlessness.
Yes.
And I feel that as a society, a rising feeling of anxiety. You talked about mental wellness, or you talked about financial wellness earlier. What would be just even the beginning point that you could give someone who is feeling financial anxiety today that could help them feel like they had a bit more power or a bit less uncertainty?
Well, several things. I think financial literacy is so important. So making sure that we are informed financially, whether that's taking a personal finance course or listening to money podcasts, reading money books, and having a team of advisors. So that could be a financial planner, or it could be friends or family that are particularly savvy with money. Maybe it's an accountability partner that you're going to work on your financial health with and support one another. But to have other people who you bounce ideas around, and then to have systems of financial consciousness. I love Rocket Money, which you can connect all your accounts, all your investments, all your credit cards, and at a glance see your net worth and see your cash flow. And being financially conscious gives us the awareness to create positive change. So to decrease our spending in certain areas, because we can go in financial denial and not realize, for example, Rocket Money lets us know how many subscriptions we're paying for. And when I first started it, I found out I had 3 Hulu subscriptions in my family. So we were able to cut that and many, many other expenses. And then learning about investment opportunities and how to diversify your investments in various places, whether it's your business or your real estate or a side hustle or something like that. And then I think from a mental well-being perspective, applying mindfulness to money is the golden ticket, in my opinion. So we all know that mindfulness is grounding ourselves in the here and now by connecting to the breath and the wisdom of the body. And so many of us ruminate about maybe poor financial decisions of the past, or we worry about the uncertainty of the future. And if we can keep our mind chatter focused on the here and now, we're going to have more peace and equanimity. And when we have equanimity or mental calmness, we can make decisions that are financially responsive rather than emotionally reactive out of fear. And we can also zoom out and see the big picture, that if the market drops, that's a blip in time. And if we zoom out, we see that over time, things recover. It's going to be okay. And I think also connecting with your heart and your gut instead of just being in your head about making financial decisions has been very helpful for me in terms of, is this purchase or this business opportunity, does it feel good? Does it feel healthy? Does it feel clear and aligned? And if not, it's time to move in a different direction.
Your comment about getting out of your head and into your body, I could not agree with more. It's so easy to start overthinking those patterns and not actually giving yourself the space and time to understand, what am I feeling about this experience? Many of us, I think, were never taught those skills as children, especially if we're talking about money and we grew up in a home where our parents perhaps went through financial struggles or anxiety or stress. We would react in the exact same way. I know for me personally, my parents went through a divorce when I was young, and then my mom really struggled financially. And that had a substantial impact on my perspective about money in ways that, did create some very positive momentum. Like, I watched her have to bail herself out of a lot of credit card debt. We went through several experiences that I think were really shameful or embarrassing to her, around not being able to afford and pay for things. And I thought to myself, I don't ever want to be in that circumstance again. And so I learned the value of being responsible, of saving and being responsible with my credit cards and investing in the stock market. But on the flip side, right, there were a lot of scarcity things that I had around having to save money and feeling uncomfortable spending money, that were things I really had to learn and work through in order to be able to grow and do the things that were investing in a bigger future. And I think we all end up with that in one way or another in our journey. And to your point, are often really unconscious of it. And to me, the ability to, at a very bare minimum, when you start ruminating and having those experiences, to stop just processing in the head and say, what am I feeling in my body? Right? Is my heart beating fast? Do I feel panic? Do I feel urgency? Do I need to move right now? Do I feel hopeless and depressed, like there's nothing I can do? I think it's our overriding of those feelings through trying to take action or be busy or do other things that often perpetuates the buildup of the problem until it gets to a place where everything feels like the world's going to end, even though it will not. And so I think your advice there is really valuable, because if we could just slow down enough to experience, mind and body and emotions in that experience, and accept the reality of whatever we're experiencing. It might be I make 6+ figures, but I don't have the savings I want, and I'm worried about my job and if AI is going to take that job. And I'm now feeling panic in my body and anxiety. And I feel like I have to do something right now or the whole world will fall apart. If you can acknowledge that and get into a place, to your point, of more peace, then you can see it more clearly for what it is. Okay, my circumstance today is the same as it was yesterday. So I'm okay. In this moment, I am safe and okay. And from that, knowing that there's potential risk in the future, what actions can I actually take to put myself in a better position? And it seems so simple. And yet I know that it, especially early on for me, was very challenging.
Absolutely. And I love how you've reflected on your mother's financial life and how that's shaped and molded yours. And it sounds like yours was like a pendulum swing. My father was born during the Great Depression. And so he understandably had a scarcity mindset around money. And like you, he worked tremendously hard and was very, very successful. But then in the automotive recession of the 1980s, he became unemployed and very depressed. And that scarcity mindset came back. And my parents fought a lot about money. And it was confusing because we lived in a nice house and really probably everything was okay. But in my father's mind, the sky was falling. And because of his previous financial trauma, even now with everything that we're going through right now with the market and the tariffs and changes that are happening globally, my speaking business has slowed. And even though I know that that's normal and other speakers have had a similar experience, it triggered financial anxiety for me and even feelings of my own worth and value. But I'm listening to Michael Singer's The Surrender Experiment, and it is an opportunity for surrender. And sometimes I think the universe redirects us. And so now I'm working on book number 2 because I'm not traveling quite as much for speaking. And there are gifts in that. So we just have to take care of ourselves through these times of challenge and learn to coach ourselves through it and be our own loving parent, our own best friend, and our own compassionate advocate. And we do each have to reinvent ourselves at different seasons of life or as the world changes. And we're not alone in that. For me, being in community, especially with other women, I'm a member of the Dames, which is a group for 6, 7, and 8-figure women business owners. And to have a think tank of other people similar to me who we can brainstorm with and support one another is really normalizing and helpful.
Yeah, again, you're not broken. Nothing's wrong with you. There's so much about what you said that I think I see as a pattern when we get into these moments or these times of uncertainty. Our vision narrows to our experience and must be us only, or the current anxiety that we're feeling, without the ability to actually zoom out and say, is what I'm experiencing happening to other people? Is this happening in a particular industry or in a particular way? What are the common patterns of this? To be able to see what my granny used to always say, which is, this too shall pass.
Yes,
And I think that that's the biggest lie our brain tells us when we feel these things, is that whatever we are experiencing in this moment right now will continue forever. And it is that belief system or that fear that keeps us from being able to have peace in the moment and make better decisions in the future of where to go.
exactly. I love how you said our brain tells us. And, you know, if you believe in mind, body, spirit, our brain is our ego and our spirit is our essence. And the more that we can practice mindfulness, the more we can learn to separate from that voice, from that ego, which houses our imposter syndrome, our perfectionism, our inner saboteur, all of which keeps us small, and connect with that deeper, higher, wiser self and our unique light and operate from in the world in that way. And again, recognizing even if we don't have a job or we don't have a gorgeous house or we're in financial difficulty, that does not mean that we don't have tremendous value, and that is temporary. just like having tremendous wealth can be temporary. It can go away. We know people who won the lottery, or the football players who spend everything and a couple of years later, don't have anything. We have to know that we're deserving with or without money, and connect with the breath and the body and take it one moment at a time.
You mentioned earlier something that I thought would be maybe a little bit of a tangent, but related. This discussion around how we look at work, value, and money. Most of us, I believe, were taught by, our parents and grandparents that the amount of hard effort we put in equals our value and the amount of money that we make. That was one of the biggest paradigms I had to break when I left corporate America and started my own business. It wasn't how hard I worked, the amount of time and energy and effort I put into something. It was actually the value I created through that work that was equivalent. Because, right, money is just an exchange of value, where what you're offering is equal to or higher than what that exchange is. I think as we look at where we are headed as a society with technology, with AI, there's even a larger shift that, something a human could have done and would have taken 2 weeks, a computer can do in 5 minutes, which means the entire paradigm around hard work, time being tied to value and money is breaking, and it's breaking at exponential speeds that it's never been at. And I think there are a lot of people that still, especially in corporate, believe that how much money they make is tied to how hard they work, how many hours, what that looks like. And again, that goes into everything when we start talking about finances and being able to be more adaptable, being able to be more creative about how we look at financial health and investments and opportunities. What are your perspectives about that? And what would you share about what you see coming with regard to that?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think you articulated that so beautifully. And I couldn't agree more that the hard work and time variables are shifting. And I love how you're talking about value and money being an exchange of value. And so instead of it being per product or per service or per hour, or per year, it's different. And I noticed that with people who work in coaching or consulting, that there's a move away from hours and time to the value and the overall benefits of the work. And so I think that's going to open up a lot of freedom for us to have more time to take better care of ourselves and to really celebrate our very unique human gifts that AI could never possess, and to really come into that. And so I think we're going to be called, certainly ethically, to guide AI and preserve humanity, as we move into an even more digital age, and to become more connected. I think we've become quite disconnected, with the loneliness epidemic. And so my hope is that the systems and structures are breaking, and that a new way of connecting and communicating and leading and living is birthing. And I think it probably is a more traditionally feminine style than we've been living in a sort of traditionally masculine mode of operation. And I always think that when there's more of a combination, that then we're coming into center and wholeness, and that's something that's sustainable.
One of the big things I value that's a big part of the work I've been doing for the last 8 years, and central point of Impact with Ease, is truly being able to understand how you are uniquely wired and your unique fingerprint for success. Becoming an expert in understanding that for yourself, so that you have the capability to develop yourself, you have the capability to communicate that effectively, and you have the broad-based understanding to be able to see and understand your skills, your gifts, your ways of creating success outside of the confines of perhaps how you've always seen it. And when I listen to what you're talking about, I think that's more important now than ever. In a world where everything felt commoditized, you go to school, everybody is good at every single subject, you learn and memorize these things, the jobs look the same. My personal opinion, as you look at what's happening with AI, is a lot of the entry and middle level knowledge based roles are going to go away. AI will do that better than we can. So then, how as humans can we become indispensable? How do we grow? How do we leverage our gifts to move forward? And I think most of us don't know that about ourselves. That has been my experience over and over again as I've been helping people really understand, who are you? How are you naturally wired? What are your gifts? What are you passionate about? And what is the pattern of your success, regardless of your job? That same pattern exists in your personal life, in your relationships, in your job. And when you can come to understand that and build upon that skill set and how you're naturally wired and continue to develop yourself, that is job security. That is life security. That is the ability to take control and be empowered to create the life you want, because no matter what happens, you understand how to navigate life in a way that's empowering to you. And so when you talk about that, I think it's such a beautiful point of the work that we're doing here and continuing to ramp up, because I think it's more important than ever.
And I love your impact with ease philosophies. And you and I are so much in alignment. My framework is, I call it the psychology of success. And it's 12 pillars that I've really seen in my clients that lead to holistic success and wellness, personally and professionally. And so many of those you and I have talked about in terms of presence, abundance, support, vision, compassion, some healthy detachment or emotional separation from times of turbulence or challenge. And so I do think you and I are seeing the same trends and sort of presenting them in very similar frameworks. And I don't think that's an accident when people come across the same truths. It's something, being emerged and coming forward for us all.
100%. And there's so many different angles and ways to approach it. Yours are from these broad-based, very clear understanding of these are the skills you need. Really, the work I do is more fundamental and like the day-to-day. How are you
Nice.
experiencing living and doing life on a day-to-day basis? Tangible, sustainable success based on behaviors, thoughts, experiences on a day-to-day basis. That when you begin to shift, when you begin to understand it, you see that life is always teaching you lessons. When you can begin to see the framework of the lessons you're being taught, the ability to rapidly grow and change and reap the benefits of the gifts you're being given every day exponentially increases. But it comes from understanding both, right? The big picture and what you're experiencing on a day-to-day individualized basis.
Absolutely. We have to do our work from the inside out and also the outside in. So I think we just have different approaches of where to start, but it all has to be done.
Awesome. Well, Joyce, as always, it's been such a pleasure having you today. You have been so generous to provide a very special gift as part of our launch for the Impact with Ease podcast. I'd love for you just to share a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I am offering my digital course, which is called the Financial Mindset Fix. And it's a financial health, mental health program with exercises. So there's a video for each module. There's 5 modules, and I teach the skills. And then you have to do the exercises and do the work. And there's a guided meditation. And it's a very comprehensive program. So it's going to help you personally and professionally and financially. So I'm excited that you're sharing that gift with your audience.
Thank you, Joyce. And I believe you said this is over $1,000 value that you are, gifting to a few very lucky participants in this process with us of the Impact with Ease launch. Can you share a little bit about what types of results somebody could expect from doing the work of this program?
I have to say, it's not easy. It takes some time, and the results, I'm humbled by people's responses. For example, a woman that I know who's a brilliant psychiatrist did the program, and she was like, wow, Joyce, I'm learning so much about myself that I never knew. For a lot of people, it's about their relationships with themselves, their own self-esteem and self-worth. It's also about their connections to others and their maybe inability or resistance to accessing support or letting love in. And also the financial wellness piece, like just blowing the ceilings off of self-limitation and realizing that anything is possible and opening yourself up to that possibility, you can tax and more your business and your life.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. With that said, I'm going to wrap up. And what I'd love to do is give you the opportunity to close with anything that is on your heart that you want to share, anything you feel like I haven't asked you that you wish that I had.
Oh my goodness. I would just say that I think for each of us, we need to work at giving ourselves grace and practicing self-forgiveness and self-compassion. So I encourage everyone who's listening to just wrap themselves with a tremendous amount of love and to tap into the deep knowing and deep trust that your life is unfolding as it should, and your potential is limitless.
My hope from this conversation is those of you guys listening that you're excited about the possibility to expand and open up what's possible for you financially, that what Joyce has shared today has helped you realize that you're not alone. The experiences that you're having related to your finances, the things that you desire that you feel like you don't yet know how to get, that those are all possible, and that the possibilities really begin when we are willing to see the difference between where we are today and where we want to go and start taking those small steps forward. So thank you again, Joyce. It's been a pleasure. And for those of listening who would like to follow you, how can they find you?
Well, I'm on all social media, and my website is joycemarter.com. That's JoyceMarter.com.
Thank you guys, and we'll see you next time. Most successful people don't realize they're in burnout because stress and exhaustion have become so normalized. But burnout is actually a sign of deeper misalignment between how you're wired to thrive and how you're actually working and living. Fix the misalignment and everything changes. Take the free quiz at impactwithease.com/burnout-type to discover your burnout type and get next steps to reclaim your energy, lead with confidence, and create more ease in your life and career.